Welcome back to India IT Day, a special presentation on CNBC TV 18. Now we all know that India has a demographic dividend and the IT industry can serve as a platform to leverage this advantage for positive growth and development in India in the coming years. So keeping that in mind, we've organized an interactive panel discussion at the SP Jain Institute of Management and Research in Mumbai. And I have an all-star panel here. Let me introduce them to you. We'll start with Mahesh Murthy, who's the founder and CEO of the leading pay-for-performance marketing firm Pinstorm. He's also a co-founder of the early-stage venture capital fund Seed Fund. We have Valerie Wagner, who's the founder and CEO of ZipDial. And finally, we have Satya Prabhakar, who's the founder and CEO of Sulekha.com. Welcome, gentlemen. Welcome, Valerie. Thank you for coming here.
Thank you.
So I'll start off with you, Valerie. My first question. Now, the Indian IT industry is a lot about services. We are kind of we're built on services, not so much on products. Why? And what's the way to sort this out?
I think the technology services in India has been an incredibly important part of the economy and how technology has developed. That also is reflected in some ways that makes companies like the three of us have built. There are certain challenges that product companies face. Yeah. There are certain things in the regulatory environment which don't necessarily value IP and technology product as much. Yeah. There are different challenges when dealing with clients, things like that, when they're used to dealing with a services provider rather than a product company. But that said, I think it's been I've been in India for 5 years, and I've seen a marked difference in the last 18 months or so where startups especially are really starting to think about products and not just replicating some model that worked in some other country in India, but also local innovation that's local product innovation, which is exciting to see.
Satya, what's your view on the fact that why is there such a dearth of innovation in India?
Until recently, the internet has made it available, made it paid distribution accessible to various companies. Most of the innovation was happening for companies in the West, and the execution was left to companies in India. I think primarily the problem was that even if you created one product, an innovative product, I think gaining distribution around the world was a major challenge for companies in India. And it was primarily the exclusive reserve of a lot of companies in Western Europe and the US. Right? But I think with this new technological paradigm of digital distribution over the web, and this also the second paradigm is that you don't need to build complex products to succeed. You can build smaller apps for various devices and gain distribution of that to all around the world. Right. I think these two things they will lead to a major wave of innovation at the product level in India than what we have witnessed so far. Yeah.
Mahesh, now your company, Pinstorm, you do provide solutions for companies around the globe, I believe.
We've been investing in IP for about 8-9 years, and today a significant part, 20-25% of our revenues come from licensing our product, and the other 70-80% come from offering reasonably high-end services. So it's a kind of a consulting company with a product base. That's the way it works. To answer your earlier question, you asked why there is a dearth of product innovation in India. It actually comes down to our nature. As a country, we are very risk averse. I think even a lot of the audience here, you came here to do your MBAs, I guess, because you're trying to de-risk your lives, right? And you're all going to go and apply for a job when somebody comes out here. So really, entrepreneurship is about people who are willing to actually take that risk. So you will actually probably find that, if you do a study, a degree college outside out here may, on a per capita basis, produce more entrepreneurs because they have a greater appetite for risk. So the earlier generation of the Infosys, the Wipros and the TCSs were pretty fine when it came to, doing that level of services entrepreneurship, because it was the most risk-free way. We call it the SMK sector, the Saste Mein Kar Lenge sector. Whatever you do in the West, hum Saste Mein Kar Lenge. So at one point, two things happened. One, that to really create another Saste Mein Kar Lenge company, you needed to have 5,000, 10,000 people. You need to have huge scale. And today that huge scale is out of the reach of a lot of young startups. And two, younger entrepreneurs, I'm beginning to see really happily, we've been backing entrepreneurs at Seed Fund for 6 years, are beginning to take risks, beginning to say, I will build a brand, I will build a product. IP doesn't have to be technology IP, it can be brand IP, right? And I will actually be the front-end company and not just a back-end provider. That to us is a far more exciting business. We don't have, out of our 26, 27 companies in our portfolio, I don't think we have a single services company.
Now, Valerie, you moved to India, I believe, about 5 years ago to set up your business. Why? What did you see in India?
I love the kinds of problems you can solve in markets like this. In the U.S., when you talk about consumer technology, and leave aside healthcare and biotech and things like that, which are real fundamental game changers, but when you're talking about consumer technology, it's more nice to have innovations. Mm-hmm. Fundamentally, if a lot of the innovations that have come out of consumer tech in the Bay Area in the last X many years, if those disappeared today, the world would not really be fundamentally that different. But when you're here in India, the kinds of problems, and originally what I moved over to work on was mobile payments, mm-hmm. where you're fundamentally providing an important livelihood service, banking, to 500 million people who don't yet have banking. That kind of innovation is really exciting when no market is saturated. There is room for innovation everywhere, and there's room to do things new and differently in a way that can build a huge business, mm-hmm. and create real value for people.
Satya, Sulekha.com also does it's a digital commerce platform. Correct. So, there was a time when earlier we weren't open to buying stuff on the net, but that has changed over the years. How much more do you think is this just the tip of the iceberg? How much more is there in the digital e-commerce sector?
Sure. I think there are, as far as the digital commerce sector is concerned, I think we are at the cusp of a major explosion going forward. I think if you look at other countries, emerging economies such as China and Brazil and even Eastern European countries, we are just a very small fraction in terms of the volume of commerce that is traded mm-hmm. online. Right. I think that as we go along, both in terms of, there are three classes, right, which is you are selling new products online, you are selling or buying and selling used products online. Yeah. Third one is also you're buying and selling actually services online. Mm-hmm. And there are businesses who are selling and consumers who are selling, and the businesses who are buying and consumers who are buying. So if you look at this, the multiple ways in which transactions happen. Mm-hmm. One is through just plain advertising, mm-hmm. where somebody wants to get their brand known, and the transaction happens offline. Or somebody is advertising a specific product or a service for sale. The handshake happens offline, but the handshake happens online, transaction happens offline. Mm-hmm. And the new one is what we're calling, goes by the name of e-commerce, mm-hmm. where the transaction closure also happens online. So there are multiple revenue models and multiple business opportunities in this entire space of new goods, used goods and services. And especially when you're looking at a market that has potentially, they say, about 1.2 billion people. And if you look at the small to medium businesses, there are about roughly 8 to 10 million of them. Mm-hmm. This permutation and combination of what all can happen, we have not yet seen anything of that. And I think when you look at systemically, when you look at the secular trends of where this whole digital market is headed, in spite of the short-term ebbs and flows of where venture capital is going at any point in time, if you can just look beyond that, I think secularly, I think it is one of the greatest opportunities ever in India, I would think.
We'll take a short break. Don't go anywhere. You're watching India IT Day on CNBC TV 18. Welcome back. You're watching India IT Day on CNBC TV 18. What are investors looking at? What's the sector? What's the new?
So, I think everybody has their own point of view. Not all investors have the same thesis they approach investing or life with. So I'll tell you what the way we work and our thesis. Our belief is that while the opportunity has fundamentally changed, has become explosively large, the chance for people to win has actually become, in some ways, quite restricted. So here's what I mean. So we all know, for example, Google is the world's largest search engine. Who's number 2? We don't know. We all know eBay is number 1. Who's number 2? We don't know. We all know Facebook is the largest social network. Who's number 2? We don't know. We all know Twitter is the largest microblogging platform. Who's number 2? We don't know. Increasingly, you'll find in categories which are digital and English-led, and we're still, ironically, an English-led country, it's a winner-take-all game. If in the automotive industry, in the 20th century, Volkswagen had a 20% market share, a Toyota had a 19% market share, and GM had a 17% market share, and so on and so forth, you could see that you could make a really good living even as a number 5 automotive company. What's changed in the world is you can't make a living even as a number 2 search engine today. You can't make a living even as a number 2 video search engine, video site today.
Now, Valerie, I have a question for you. Mahesh was talking earlier about, creating new markets or new niches kind of thing, new requirements for these. So how do you do that? How do you come up with these ideas? How do you come up with the idea of zip dial?
For us, we looked at the fact that in markets like India, you have, everybody's got a mobile phone, but nobody is, connected in other ways. And there's tons of money going into advertising in traditional media. 95% of what advertisers spend is in traditional media, where there is no connect directly with the consumer. So advertisers are working with high-level market research data and sales data, but they don't have any kind of personalized anything. So regardless of the fact that India is basically 35 countries stuffed into one, everybody gets cricket in Bollywood. Even though there's more South Indian movies produced every year than Bollywood movies. So we said, everyone's got a phone. And you spend most of your life interacting with real-world media and with traditional media. So let's make it simple to digitize that experience and personalize that experience. So how do you lower the barrier for a consumer to participate and engage by, dialing numbers toll-free or missed calls, which is a very common habit that we all have here anyway. So we kind of looked at where is there a big gap that customers want. Advertisers want more of something, users want more of something. We can fill that gap with a very simple experience and a powerful platform in the back end. And it's working.
Satya, now the mobiles, she's talking about mobiles, and definitely India has a huge penetration. We have much more wireless connections than we do have landlines or wired connections. So is the new place to be mobile? Is all companies, should they have a presence on mobiles?
Our view on that is that the attractiveness of the phone is because of the small form factor that you can slip into your pocket. I think what makes it attractive as a device, the phone, which is the small form factor, also makes it an inhospitable device for certain kinds of applications. For example, if you want to e-commerce, for example, a lot more e-commerce happens on an iPad than on an iPhone, right? Because the iPad is a much bigger device, and certain forms of complex or more involved transactions, I think, require a much bigger area to consume, to assimilate the information and to act on it. But I think there are various applications for which are short consumption and simpler modes of interaction. I think there is a tremendous opportunity for us on the phone device, because people are using it on the go. So obviously the sheer volume of devices and the amount of time that people spend with the devices, which are almost attached to their body all the time, right? I think makes them, it's just not an option, but to make your service accessible in a form that allows you to use your service more easily on a phone.
I think it's essential for businesses who are addressing consumers and selling to consumers to think mobile first. And the existing big businesses have been in a browser, a desktop or a tablet kind of space, and they're trying to port that experience, to the mobile, and even Facebook. Only recently the headlines have changed from saying Facebook has no idea what to do on the mobile to, okay, it's not a risk for them anymore. Rather than starting yourself on that kind of cycle, think mobile first, because it turns out this half of the world, not just India, but all emerging markets, mobile is the first connectivity for consumers. So that's a huge opportunity to create more innovation.
All right, we'll continue with this discussion after this short break. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. You're watching India IT Day on CNBC TV 18. Talking about the internet, because again, like mobile, you can offer more options on the mobile if you're using the internet, so if you're using a smartphone and things like that. And I know that countries like South Korea have made an internet like their basic necessity. Do you think India can head down that way? When can we get there?
So actually, the 10-ton elephant in the room, that is really a huge problem that we haven't talked about, is language. So South Korea has this incredible unity of language. There's just one language, one script. China has exactly one script, which is why it has 500 million internet users. We are proud of having 18, 20 official languages. Our government is proud of saying we have 8 standard Devanagari keyboards, 7 standard Tamil keyboards, and 6 standard Kannada keyboards, thereby ensuring there are no standards whatsoever in any of these languages, right? So essentially the big elephant in the room is the fact that we have an English internet. We have only 275 million people in India who know English, right? And if we stick with the English internet, that's about as far as it can go. So that dream Satya says about 1.2 billion people is not going to be accessible. To be able to move things over from the English internet to language internet is not really going to happen on the browser because we don't have input devices. How many of you have ever used a Devanagari or a Tamil or a Hindi or a Kannada keyboard? You haven't, right? So it is going to happen actually on the mobile phone. And it will happen primarily through voice, I believe, and touch, right? I don't believe that people, for example, my driver, he's got a phone, he's got a data connection. He's not dumb, he's not unintelligent. He's smart, he's intelligent, but he just doesn't know how to type in Devanagari or Marathi on the phone. I can't blame him for it. So I think the real innovation and the big breakthrough when we go from, we'll be our 250, 300 million internet users in a couple of years. To take that to 600 million, we have to bust through the language barrier, and that will really mean a complete redesign of what we look at, of how things work with voice and how things work with touch screens. So it's a different kind of innovation from what is needed in South America, what's needed in Africa. Those problems are a little different.
So you think a new whole services would be coming up? I mean, new companies would be coming up in these?
So it's a problem to be solved. And problem to be solved, you can look at it as a problem, you can see it as an opportunity. Yeah. I'm personally backing companies to solve that. I'm funding companies that will attempt to solve that. I don't believe that only our own companies will solve it. There will be other businesses out there. But we have to kind of go through this stuff for us to really hit it out and get to the next part of scale.
So this is the venture capitalist talking about what he's doing for companies. From you, as someone who's got funding from a venture capitalist, how do you go up to these guys with this idea that, okay, for example, any idea that you've had, this is my idea, what do you do to go up to them?
As an entrepreneur, as a CEO, 90% of what you do, especially in the first early years, is selling. Whether you're selling to customers, your employees, your investors, it doesn't matter. You're selling. And so much of selling is packaging and communicating what you have to offer. I talk to so many aspiring entrepreneurs who have a great technology, have a great idea, are extremely talented, but they have 37 slides of 12-point font each, and they're going through every possible detail of every possible thing they could do, and the investor's going to glaze over. So it's so much of getting to the core of those key points that the investor is going to be thinking about, and having some insight about what any particular investor's thesis is also helps in terms of, is that a fit for you or not? But making sure to focus on communicating what you have to offer in a way that's going to actually make your point.
Satya, when you've been running Sulekha.com for so long, There was a period in the middle, I believe, companies came over to you and they said they wanted to buy you out, but you've had a venture capitalist put in money too. How do you decide? Do I sell out? Do I hold out?
I think it depends on your few things. One is your calculation and the calculation of the investors on the board as to the net present value of this company based upon what you see the future has to be, right? If it is going to be outsized future. And the second one mostly has to be with the key team that is running the company. Do they still wake up in the morning with enthusiasm and eager to want to build it? I think that is more than anything else, more than investor capital, more than anything else, more than ambition. I think ambition is an overrated skill. Right. I feel that more than ambition, what you need is actually, you need resolve. Because ambition is cheap. Resolve is very expensive. It's very hard to get. Because every morning you wake, what I feel is that a company is like having a 6-month-old baby forever, right? It's like, it's constantly, there are issues and there are opportunities, right? And Valerie says that in the first 2 years you are constantly selling. She's wrong. You're always selling, right? And I also feel that in any company, even a well-established company, for example, like Nokia, right? To be successful, multiple things have to be connected to an and condition, right? You got to do A well, and B well, and C well, and D well, and E well, right? Multiple things have to fall into place for you to succeed. But failure is an or condition, right? You screw up A, or B, or C, or D, you're dead, right? So, but of course, as you build enterprise, I think the margin of error tends to increase, that you can screw up for certain things for some period of time, but if you are smart enough to realize it, and recover from it and actually be capable of repairing your faults, I think then you can recover and move on.
So you keep learning from your experiences. Absolutely. Maybe you fail once, you get better the second time. We'll continue with this discussion after this short break. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. You're watching India IT Day on CNBC TV 18. India has a huge failure stigma. Somebody will point out to you कि ये इसकी company bankrupt हो गई, ये fail हो गया, and look at कि he's got a well-paid, good job, secure job with a huge company. How do we get over this stigma? Because unless we don't take risk, we won't innovate, we won't move ahead.
So this is this is really one of those things where, for example, I come from a traditional, Satya will know this, South Indian, Tamilian, Brahmin, Iyer family, and I don't think anybody in my family for a few hundred years has ever been an entrepreneur. So for me to go out and want to do this, so for me failure started with the fact that I decided to drop out of college. It was unheard of, right? So obviously everybody thought I was either on dope or whatever, right? They couldn't understand why some guy from a merit list would want to drop out. For me, and this entire thing about the stigma of failure is really log kya kahenge, what will others think? And my point is always that what I look in entrepreneurs is entrepreneurs who really succeed or who really work it out don't really give a damn. Essentially, I think one big perhaps fault is a cultural system we were brought up in, which says put your head down, work very hard, and one day far away at the end of the rainbow is a pot of gold. So you put your head down and work very hard. And my sense is, you put your head down, you work very hard, and one day at the end of the rainbow, you're dead. Okay. So given that, and then your entire thing is not about maximizing the value when you're dead, because what's the point of having the most choice when you're dead? Then the point is maximizing, the only asset you have is the 30, 40, 50 years between now and the time you die. And your job is to maximize or have as much fun as possible between now and then.
Oh, good. Okay, quick poll. Let's have a show of hands from you guys here. How many of you guys all doing your MBAs, how many of you guys join a big, nice, huge, big company? How many of you guys want to set up your own businesses? How many entrepreneurs here? Alright, nice. So I'm guessing the others all want to join big companies. Show of hands, how many of you guys want to join big companies? Nice, okay.
Right. So, how many of you are going for placement? That answers the question.
So here's a question I have for you, Valerie. Now, India has been listed on a recent World Bank report. India has been listed as the 132nd best, ease of doing business. Out of 185 countries, we've been ranked 132. So what's your advice to them? Why should they start a business here in India?
So there's an important difference between starting an Indian private limited company and starting a business that addresses the opportunities in the Indian market. And I certainly believe in the opportunities in the Indian market. We happen to be an Indian private limited company, which have learned a little bit the hard way that some things aren't as easy as as if I were a Singapore incorporated company. So one should not ignore some of those realities about regulation and whatnot, but it's addressing the Indian market is really the point here, and really the opportunity that everybody has in front of them.
What can the government do correctly to help budding entrepreneurs in this IT sector?
Right. Even though I said earlier that being an entrepreneur is very hard, I think it is very fulfilling in multiple ways. I think if you look at the arc of human civilization, I think it carried on the shoulders of entrepreneurs. Right. All progress has come because of risk takers. I think there is that kind of a sort of an ethereal, ennobling quality about entrepreneurship that is there. Secondly, I think what is that entrepreneurship offers an almost an uncommon opportunity for wealth creation that is not imaginable if you take a risk-free big company job. Right? There is only limited opportunity. The third one is that I think more than wealth creation, of course, is that, and I think because of the difficulties, what entrepreneurship does to transform you as an individual, I think that is often not spoken about in terms of, because you're addressing so many difficulties and so many problems every day. I think it transforms you as an individual and builds abilities that you didn't know existed, right? It's like full-scale physical training in the gym, things. The fourth part, which is a very important one, that it is something that has happened in India over the last 10 to 15 years. Before that, I think entrepreneurs had to take both an effort risk and a financial risk, because both were taken by the same individual. Right? You had to put in your own money and you had to put in your own effort, and if you lost out, an 80% to 90% chance you will lose out, because those are the numbers. You not only have wasted your time, you also exposed your family to a lot of financial risk. But over the last 15 years, I think the effort risk and the financial risk got divorced. Right? There are folks like Mahesh and funds who get funds from other LPs, and those LPs get funds from a lot of individuals. And so the risk is actually diversified across millions and millions of people who are putting money into funds that invest in high-risk ventures. Right? So actually today, an entrepreneur takes far less risk than what they used to take 15 years ago, because now you don't take financial risk.
All right. We'll continue with this discussion after this short break. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. You're watching India IT Day on CNBC TV 18. Mahesh, Satya earlier was talking about the three things that entrepreneurs should look at, should have: the idea, the opportunity, and a good team. So very often people believe that I have an idea as an entrepreneur, or someone just out there says and I think it's a killer idea. I think this is it. This is the new Facebook. This is the game changing. It's going to change life as we know it. But I feel that if I go to a venture capitalist and share my idea, he might just, rob my idea and build a business, and I'm just left out there in the sun. Is that...
That's a common belief. A couple of things. One, we don't have the time to steal your ideas and do anything, right? We're too busy supporting our own businesses and so on and so forth. Two, we're not as smart as you guys, right? And three, probably most importantly, there is no value whatsoever in an idea. or I was able to actually put a value to an idea. An idea is probably worth about 45 paise, because that works out to, because ideas are a dime a dozen. So you kind of do the math, it kind of comes out to something like that, right? Right? So essentially, nobody buys into an idea, nobody funds an idea. We fund a business. Nobody pays you for ideas. Your ideas are worth nothing. It is the ability to take an idea and execute it over time into a competitive business which has a sustainable competitive advantage, where you can exit, that turns it into a fundamental business. Also, a second point of view is, if you look at all these great companies out there, whoever you admire, whether it's Google or a Facebook or whatever, the idea is blindingly simple. I will connect human beings equals Facebook. I will allow you to speak whatever you want in the length of a sentence that fits on an SMS. Twitter. I will help you find information. Google. These are not earth-shatteringly huge ideas. These are simple, fundamental, basic ideas that have been executed into incredible, huge businesses.
You also had a reaction.
This also kind of comes back to an earlier question about, like, how do you approach investors and things like that. If you decide that equity investment is important to you, then showing execution. Like, if you had to prove out why your business is great and why it's going to scale to $1 billion, figuring out what are those early things you need to prove and have confidence around in real tangible ways. Like, will users like this? Are customers liking this? Will they pay you for it? Will they pay you for it repeatedly? And the earlier you can start to check those boxes, and the more boxes you can check, that will help de-risk the opportunity from the investor's perspective and make them more confident in you and your ability to execute.
But how important is it is it important to go to a VC, or can you start a business on your own capital, get a loan from a bank?
It's really a question of the business model. Every time I meet an entrepreneur who has not taken investors' money, I'm like, fantastic, good for you. It's really it should not be seen as a badge of honor. It should not be seen as the goal. Just like getting an MBA is not the goal. Getting investor money is not the goal. The goal is what do you need? What tools do you need to execute on and enable your grand plan? Whether that's for your career with a big company or your business you're starting. And if capital is an important strategic asset to successfully building your business and being the market leader that Mahesh talked about, then go to investors.
I have a different view of this than Valerie. And Mahesh, I have a higher esteem for investors than you seem to do. I think that success rests on three things. One is the opportunity. If there is an opportunity that you're going after, then do you have the resources? Yeah. Then in the middle is, of course, the idea, the concept. And the third leg is execution, right? I think investors, and especially venture capital investors, they play a supremely valuable role in lubricating the wheels of innovation, right? I mean, they know that going into this, 7 out of 10 of their investments are going to fail, and yet they put their faith and take the risk, right? And that gives the resources for a company to take the idea and execute against an opportunity.
We'll continue with this discussion after this short break. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. You're watching India IT Day on CNBC TV 18. I want to bring up inclusion now, because IT is one way that is definitely helping get inclusion out there, get inclusive India. So I think that's something close to your heart. How do you think IT is helping us now get inclusive, get India inclusive?
I always get passionate about businesses that are filling gaps and creating real need, or creating real value. Not just for consumers, but also for small businesses. Yeah. And when you have challenges in markets like India, where there isn't access to banking and there isn't access to to education and healthcare and things like that, there are that's where technology can start to bridge those gaps, because you don't need to go to the bank branch anymore, nor even the ATM, because you can send money on your mobile to someone, to your relative, or to deposit into your bank account. That's really, really, really powerful stuff. And even in ZipDial's case, when it's, yes, we work for Procter & Gamble and Unilever and Disney, but we also have very accessible packages that small businesses can buy for 1,000 rupees a month.
But is there, Satya, I'll come to you on this, is there, is there that moral thinking that, if I'm doing something inclusive, if I'm doing something for the good of people, I should not be making money out of it?
I think ultimately, whether it is for profit or non-profit, I think an idea has to be value delivering.
Right.
And somebody must be willing to pay for it to be sustainable, right? Unless you have a $100 billion philanthropic fund that doesn't care about returns. But most ideas have to have a sustainable value proposition.
Okay, cool.
I think from a technology point of view, I feel that in the current economy going forward, I think it has become what you call a threshold skill for almost every discipline that there is.
Yeah, actually, I wanted to talk about that a little. I mean, at the very base level, I think what people like us are doing out here is trying to reverse, or not trying to engineer a change in our culture. For generations, we've been a culture where entrepreneurship has lived on in sects and in castes and in classes, and its wealth has only gone from father to son to father to son. And we've had family businesses where you would prefer to fund an incompetent son rather than a far more competent outsider. And that's been our culture for hundreds of years, right? And which is why in some communities, entrepreneurship is the norm. And in the community I was born in, it is not the norm. In the community I was born in, we work for others, right? So I think the very nature of now having, a secular, open ability to fund somebody regardless of their caste, their sex, their sexual orientation, any of this is really a huge thing. The second thing really is, and I don't know if it's so much true in the US, when I have a more fundamental belief that creating wealth is good, creating employment, and while doing so you create employment. Somebody turned around and told me that, hey Mahesh, do you know that across your companies there are 5,000 employees? And I said, I didn't even know that. That's maybe 5,000 families that are being supported out there. We never thought of it that way. So essentially my belief is that when you create an enterprise, you do two things. You actually first of all create this entire, you create more bubbles of entrepreneurship in the minds of people simply through osmosis. Second, you're actually supporting a huge number of families. And I actually believe in India, every enterprise is a social enterprise.
Okay, great. So this has been a fantastic discussion. Now let's open the floor to questions, because I'm sure these guys have a lot of interesting questions for you guys.
I had a question regarding the future of cloud. So it's not very secure, and we all know there is a lot of work which is being done on cloud computing as of now. The companies are moving on the cloud. So what next, and what would be the future of the cloud? What next in IT?
So if I can take a shot, we keep talking about this, my God, people don't want to use credit cards because it's not secure. What's the alternative, right? They don't want to use credit cards online because it's not secure. The alternative is you go to a restaurant, you give your credit card to a waiter who takes it, and you have no idea what he does with it. And he gives it back to you. So the reality is, even if you look at the numbers, that the amount of fraud that is there in the online world is significantly less than the amount of fraud that is there in the offline world. The amount of fraud that is there in the cloud world is even more significantly less than what is out there. Yes, it has a potentially wider impact, but the chances are much lower.
The only thing I would like to add is that a lot of us for the last about 7-10 years have been using email on the web, right? Gmail, Hotmail. I would rather trust Google with ensuring the security of my mailbox than my own internal servers, right? And I think the movement is towards that. I don't think the fear is an unfounded one, because a lot of these companies that are billions of dollars worth companies which are offering the services make sure that they are adequately compartmentalized and protected. So the fears are unfounded, I feel.
I'm Aishwarya. My question was is the effectiveness of social media marketing for Indian businesses, particularly startups, is it overrated? We also spoke about how internet penetration in India is not that great. It's under 12%. So do you think that it is overrated?
Valerie?
You need to think about what your business is and who are you selling to, and are they on social media? And is that the right forum to talk to them? If if you're a B2B company that's selling, some part component for manufacturing, probably not social media. But if you're selling, mobile phones to youth, absolutely, you better be there in force. So it's purely a question of who are you addressing, and is that the right channel, and is that a right part of your marketing mix?
So let me take this on again. I keep hearing this. Internet penetration is only 12%. That's 145 million people, man. Right? So let's not look at this crap, MBA numbers saying 12%. 145 million people is larger than 170 countries on earth. All right? That's how big your Indian digital market is. Out of that, Facebook alone is 62 million. That's larger than 100 countries on earth in India. Right? You still want it to become bigger?
There has been a lot of red flagging by firms like Cognizant, Infosys, Hexaware, etc. and analysts are generally making muted revenue projections. So does the panel in itself see as something serving as a catalyst, particularly for 2013, which can drive Indian IT sector?
I don't think, like in the equity markets, the way you make money is not by looking out 6 months, 1 year. You got to have a 5-year horizon, 10-year horizon. Real money is made that way. I think in the technology acquisition skills also, you got to look at yourself 5 years, 10 years from now. And like companies, like where you have opportunity, resources and execution, I think opportunity definitely is there because the future is going to be all digital. Everything is going to be digital.
Thank you, Valerie. Thank you, Satya. Thank you, Mahesh. That was a really thought-provoking panel discussion we had here at the SP Jain Institute of Management and Research in Mumbai. But don't go anywhere. India IT Day continues after this short break. Ankit Vengulekar catches up with young India and sees how they use technology. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Government need to create good policies for entrepreneurship and for innovations. The initiative will have to come from the financial community and from entrepreneurs and young talent. All of this has to fit in